Hey guys, welcome back to Sad Dad. My name's Dave Abkary and I am a comedian out of Fresno, California, and this is a podcast where I sit down with my fellow funny friends, my fellow comedians, and we talk about dads. Hi, how are you? How's your week been? I had a fun week this week. I mean, it was cool. It was good. Obviously we ran our shows here in Fresno. They're kind of stressful shows, a little. Man, they were real nail biters as far as turnout. We had a show last night, and it was the first night of the World Series. I did not think it was going to affect turnout the way. I didn't think baseball was such a thing here in Fresno, but apparently it is. And show supposed to start at 7:30, and there was literally nobody there. And then I pushed it to 8:00, and then people started filling in. It turned into a fun little show at the end, but man, I was like, I don't need this stress in my life right now. This is hard. But it was good. It was good. I actually got to play Dungeons and Dragons this week, little D&D, which is pretty cool. Anybody that knows me knows I love that game, but I haven't really, with the way comedy works. It's a lot of late nights, and people tend to play D&D on late into the night, and at least my group did anyway. And so I really hadn't gotten to play. I think it's probably been at least a year and a half since I've gotten to like join a sesh, join a D&D sesh. And I had a friend of mine hit me up. She's like, hey, me and my friends are playing D&D. We've never played before. The Dungeon Master has never Dungeon Mastered before. Like, do you want to join us and play and maybe kind of help us out with some of the rules and stuff? And I was like, absolutely. It just happened to be on a day I was free, and so yeah, I got to join. It felt a little bit like cheating, playing with a different group. I was like, oh, this is naughty. But it was fun. Yeah, a lot of new D&D players are interesting because, the game offers you a lot of freedom. There's a lot of, you can literally do anything you want. It all happens in the theater of the mind, and a lot of new players go a little crazy, but you also have to remember that it's a role-playing game. So it's like, okay, you want to shoot your gun into the ceiling because you think somebody's up there, but is that really what your character would do? Your character you're playing that you created is like a level-headed, calm. He's got a high intellect, a lot of wisdom. Is that really what he would do? It's what you want to do as the player, because you just want to pull levers and push buttons and see what happens because this is all new and exciting. But remember, you're playing a character that's a fully realized individual, and you have to think like they would think. And so it's kind of funny. You almost have to watch the new players get that out of their system. They have to get that out of their system, and then they kind of figure it out. And that's exactly over there. We played for about 4 hours, and it was kind of fun to watch new players kind of have that realization as the session went on. And so it was good. It was fun. It's a little obnoxious when you're a seasoned player at first, but you just be patient and explain it to them, and it was good. I actually ended up having a really good time. I think I'm gonna play with those guys again here real soon. So got to revive my character Davlan Shortwick, who is a halfling rogue. It's like a hobbit, so he's a little 2'7" rogue with an arrow. He's a bow and arrow. He's real sneaky. I like him. It's a character I've been playing for 5 years now, so in various iterations. So I like Davlan. He's great. So cool. And oh gosh, what else has been going on? Final stretch of Sober October. We're almost there, folks. I'm almost there. Me and my buddies, we're almost there. And I'm doing okay. I've been sleeping better. I was always it's always a little hard at first to, because I realized for a long time I was kind of letting, I'd have a little nightcap, I'd have a little bit of Jameson before bed, and I was kind of allowing the booze to put me to bed, and so learning how to fall asleep on my own as an adult has been it's been nice, I'm actually, I'm not just gonna pass out on my couch tonight. I'm actually going to lay down in my bed and go to sleep like a normal person. So developing that routine has been fun. Watching a lot of spooky movies. Watched a lot of spooky movies for Halloween. Gosh, I watched something recently. What was it? There's that Netflix movie Eli. It was pretty good. There was like a little too heavy on the jump scares. I felt there was just jump scare after jump scare after jump scare after jump scare. It's like, all right, it's we get it now, and then it takes this like left turn at the end that I didn't really care for. But well, Eli on Netflix. Check it out. The first 3/4 of the movie are pretty good. And then what with the Black Coat's daughter? I think that's what it is. I think that's also on Netflix, and that was interesting. It was that one I like is because it's kind of, I mean, it's a real slow burn, but there aren't a lot of jump scares. It's a lot of kind of brooding existential fear, and that's the kind of horror I like. I mean, Hereditary is one of my like favorite movies of the last favorite horror movies of the last few years, and I don't think that's a revolutionary opinion. A lot of people love that movie, but you look at Hereditary and there's not a lot of jump scares in Hereditary. It's just a lot like a slow creeping like dread, so it's good. I would recommend that movie over Eli, but check out Eli too. If you got any spooky recommendations, you can post those up on the Sad Dad Facebook page. Let's get spooky going into Halloween. We got this weekend we got a good buddy, Rick Wood is coming up, previous Sad Dad guest, good friend of mine. And every time Rick comes up, he always wants to do something weird for the performance. I say weird, but it's usually fun. Maybe fun is more, like last time he came up earlier this year, he's like, I'm coming back from a wedding. I'm doing your show. I'm going to my friend's wedding, and then I'm going to be doing your show afterwards, and I'm going to have a suit. Like, you guys want to do, you and Danny, do you want to do comedy in suits? And I was like, yeah, sure. I got this suit I'd never wear for anything other than funerals. Let's do comedy in suits. And Rick wanted to do he wants to do comedy in Halloween costumes this weekend. So he wants to be Michael J. Fox. I've got a Wolfman costume. I was like, dude, I could be Teen Wolf. We could just do a whole Michael J. Fox like themed, a show. And Danny wasn't super on board with it though, because it's like, okay, Marty McFly, we got Teen Wolf, and then who's next? Stuart Little? Like the dog from Homeward Bound? Like who? So, and it was that moment I realized, like, oh, Michael J. Fox has done a lot of animals in his acting career. Okay, well, all right. Today's guest, let's talk about today's guest, Michael Regilio. He actually came up with a friend of mine I had headlining, and previous Sad Dad guest, David Smalley, and David Smalley brought him up. He's like, you got to check this guy out. He's great. He was featuring for David, and man, Michael is amazing. He's a great comic. I was actually talking to a comic last night about Michael and just how infuriatingly good he is at like the three kind of like schools of comedy, which are one-liners. He's got great one-liners. He's got great bits, which are kind of like a medium form of comedy with a setup and a premise and everything. And then he's also a great storyteller too. He's like this great triple threat of comedy, and he does all of them very well. And he showcased that talent great over the 2 days that he was up here. So I'm definitely going to have Michael back up here to headline our shows again. Danny and I both just absolutely fell in love with the guy. So cool. It's great chat with him today. Not just about comedy, but about music and about life. And it's a long one. It's about an hour. I think it's like an hour and 10 minutes, this conversation. And I just had an absolute blast talking to him. So without further ado, guys, here we go. Michael Regilio. For an actual disorder, there's an actual Tetris effect where it's that thing where you kind of like,
I know what you're talking about, where you see things
like you're just looking around in everyday life and you're kind of like still kind of superimposing it onto real life, and so it's a legit disorder, and they decided to name their game after that.
It happens to me quite often.
Yeah, it happens to me. Like,
if I popped a beer?
Oh yeah, go for it, man. By all means. Yeah, like if I'm playing like a first-person shooter game for like a long time, I feel like I start to see like the reticule in my vision. You know what I mean? And like I'm driving somewhere and I'm like, oh, my reticule. This is not a good way to interact with society with the fucking gun crosshairs on everybody's face.
Wow. Is that your vape that smells that good?
Yeah,
It's
Yeah,
like
it
maple
smells so
syrup or
good.
something?
It's a weird flavor. They didn't have my normal flavor. This is a tobacco pistachio.
It smells amazing.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. It's not too fruity. It's not or sweet. It's sort of neutral. It's nice.
I don't vape for that very reason. I don't
Yeah.
another vice. They
Yeah,
smell
that's real.
Yummy though.
They're amazing. Ish. I don't know. It's a lifestyle. You were telling me. I heard you talking about your buttons yesterday.
Yeah.
What's
Vintage.
the vintage?
They're all the real deal.
Where do you go to find vintage buttons?
There was a shop in LA. It's gone now that used to have them. But this one was actually a gift, and this one was a gift.
Oh, that's cool.
I have a bunch of other ones, but this is just for the age we live in. The Nixon Agnew next to impeach the motherfucker already.
Oh, that's
a message
funny.
unto
That's what I was
itself.
wondering. What that was like. Antifa? What is it?
And then this one's just, I survived the Reagan administration and the McCarthy. I mean, that is the McCarthy.
That's wild.
Like the McCarthyism.
Whoa.
Like the Red Scare, like the have you no shame guy.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's wild.
Yeah, that one's really wild. That one's super valuable.
Where did you find that?
That one was a gift as well. Now
Was
that I
it?
think of
Yeah. I mean, is it like a big community online? You know what I mean?
I
Like,
have no idea. I'm a political junkie in this and I'm also into vintage stuff. And I mean, the
Yeah.
60s is my favorite
Uh-huh.
era ever.
The-
Beatles freak, Beach Boys freak.
Are there like big I want to imagine there's like, are there like conventions?
There's gotta be.
Like
Gotta
with guys with like lanyards full of buttons, like trading them like Disney pins or something. Yeah, that'd be wild.
Gotta be. I still have a Barack Obama hope pin in the plastic that they put it in, hoping that it'll be valuable someday.
Oh, wow.
I mean, there's probably 200 million of them out there right now, so it's not
Sure.
worth much. But who knows?
Yeah.
30 years, 40 years, we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, and it's a really iconic design too. I mean, that's got to play into a value, I'd imagine too.
Absolutely. I hung on to a bunch of Star Wars stuff when I was a kid and vomited on it about 20 years ago when I was sick. And
Did you for real?
yeah, I really
Like
did.
all over the card stocks and everything?
Yeah.
I was checking it out and I was sick and it just came over me and I puked all over it. Now it's all worthless. So
Oh my
yeah.
God. What terrible timing.
Yeah. Worst.
It's amazing. Have you ever performed in Fresno before, or is this your
No.
first time up?
First time. I've definitely performed in Fresno as a musician a number of times.
Oh wow!
But
do you remember any of the venues?
last time I was here was like 4 or 5 years ago, and it was a newer venue, really cool place too. I don't remember the name of it.
Maybe like Strummers or trying to think. Strummers is a real. I mean, they do a lot of bands at Strummers. It's in the Tower District and stuff. So
Yeah, this was a hip neighborhood. I remember that.
Yeah, it would have more than likely would have been Tower. I wonder if it was Strummers. It's got to be Strummers.
It gotta be.
Yeah, it used to be.
Sounds about right.
It used to be back in the day. It was the Starline, and then it changed to Strummers. But yeah, I have a lot of memories at Strummers.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Starline maybe was what it was still called when I was here. Is that possible? 4, 5, 5, 6,
I
maybe?
think it switched over probably about 6 or 7 years ago. So
My memory's
I mean,
not so great. It might have been that long ago.
Yeah, it was cool. At one point I lived down there for a number of years, and I was dating a gal who was a bartender there, and like the only time, because I worked during the days and she's a bartender, she's working at nights, so really the only time we had to like hang out was while she was working at Strummers.
Oh, yeah.
And, that was a dark time for me, man. It was just getting shit faced every single night because she would just kind of like feed me shots. And,
Oh, that's interesting. On the occasions that I've gotten drunk every night, I consider that to be a light, shining, wonderful time in my life. It's the nights I don't get drunk every night that I'm like, this is dark. These are dark times.
It's fun for a while for sure.
Yeah.
But it got to the point where I like learned all the closing duties, you know. So
Yeah.
I'm
I do
just
that.
an
Yeah.
unemployed employee there. So I just have a lot of memories at Strummers. There's some fun comedy shows that happen there too. So that's cool. You got to play all over. You're a musician.
Yeah.
And I was gonna ask you about that. That's neat. You're a guitar player.
Guitar player, went to the Berklee
College of Music, okay. Is tape rolling?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Because if I'm going to start
we're-
bragging about how awesome I am, I want the world to know. No, not a big deal. Just the most prestigious music school in the world. Yeah, no. And as I always like to say, paid off beautifully. Had to give up on it completely, and now I'm trying something totally new. So yeah,
Wild.
that was a
Yeah,
big waste. I always say that it's like if you go, I was stupid. I studied performance. Like if you go and study what's called like music production and engineering, and there's a bunch of degrees you can get from there that actually would benefit you as you go out into the wider world. But what I studied was that what any kid could study in his bedroom with a fucking guitar player magazine, and he can spend $300 a year on it. I spent $30,000 a year on it, and it's totally no band in the history of the world has ever been like, dude, you're perfect. You play great. You get along with everybody. Can we just see your diploma real quick before?
Right.
Nobody gives a fuck. Nobody gives a fuck. And it's a worthless.
Do you shred or do you not shred?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what I need
yeah.
to know, bro.
Paper says he shreds. He's a shredder.
That's wild. What? I mean, obviously you're plugging away at that for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, like what? I mean, I know it's one of those things because I'm a musician. You're never like not a musician. But,
Yeah.
what was sort of the change for you? I mean, what was kind of led you away from
Well,
pursuing that full time?
I mean, it was a slow change, and I'm not out completely.
Sure,
I
yeah.
was just telling some folk this morning. I play in this band called Sorry About Everything, which is fronted by a gentleman by the name of Dino Stamatopoulos,
Okay.
who most people know as Starburns from the TV show Community.
Oh wow!
But he was also a writer on Conan and Letterman, and he had his own show called Moral Oral, which is
Yeah,
very
yeah.
popular with the kids and whatnot. And I call it kind of a comedy band because it's just Dino being Dino. But when
Sure.
he sings a song about what's on his mind, it's about being whipped and chained by prostitutes and all sorts of weird stuff. I mean, he's crazy, and we're doing a 26-hour straight podcast for Halloween.
Yeah, you were
And,
telling me about that. That's wild.
Yeah, so I play with him, and it's really rewarding for me personally in that he does all the work, which I'm not used to. I'm used to being in bands, and where I just come in and play guitar for him, and I just try so hard to bring it as hard as I can on guitar. I don't take it. It's not a joke to me at all. I try and give him the best, coolest guitar parts anybody could get, played as best. Like I take it very seriously. I'm still a serious musician in that sense.
Yeah.
But it ended up working out swimmingly. Where like, I'm switching over to comedy now. And the reason that happened more than anything was just age, and I was tired of carrying gear. It was like,
Isn't that wild?
if you could reach a point in your career as a musician where somebody else carries your gear, great. But if you reach a point at like 35 years of age where you're like, dude, I can't lift amplifiers in and out of vans 5 nights a fucking week anymore. My back just won't allow it. Like it's either go to the next level and become a guy that with roadies and whatnot, or just fucking figure something else out. You know. And I was and so the last band did really well. Got a lot of radio play, got a record deal, got management deals and everything, and the whole thing fell apart as it does. I do blame myself a little bit in that just as things were starting to go well, I always do this. Every time things are going well in my life, I'm suddenly, instead of going, oh, great, everything's starting to go well, now it's time to push harder, to work harder, to do more, have more output. I'm like, I think I'll just spend the next year at this girl's apartment watching Netflix and eating, M&Ms or whatever it is, all night. Like just, and when everything fell apart, I look back, I was like, dude, why did you do that? You should have been pushing harder, working harder. Instead, you took it easy and hung out with a girl, you know? So
that's tough, man.
So as it was all falling apart, a friend called me up and he was like, dude, they're doing this stand-up comedy class and I signed you up for your birthday. I was like, I don't want to do it. He goes, dude, you're funny. You'd be good. Trust me, you'd be good. Just do it. I was like, oh, man. He's like, it's my birthday present to you. So I was like, you know what? Screw it. And I went, and from the first class onward, it wasn't so much that I was like, oh, I'm hooked, which I was, because stand-up comedy gets inside of you and it lives inside of you so hard. What I was really hooked on was from the first class on, everyone was like, you're funny, you're good. I'm like, I love compliments. This is working out swimmingly. And then I went and did my first open mic. I was like, oh my, the opposite of compliments.
Sure.
Like my first open mic was at a place called Echoes Under Sunset in Echo Park, which is Hipster Central. And I had done this comedy class where everyone was so supportive. Michael's getting on stage like, yes, tell us some of your jokes, old friend. What do you got in there? I got up in front of total strangers. I was like, hey, here's my jokes. And like, not just dead silence, like people visibly rolling their eyes like, oh, who's this guy? What is he doing? And a girl actually went, oh my, after one of my jokes, like she was like, oh my, like what do you? And I was like, and I said to myself, I walked out of there and I was like, that was so degrading. And I said, I just know me. I know the way life works. I have two choices: never do stand up again, or get on the app, find another open mic right now, and go do it again. Yeah. And I did. I jumped in my car. I drove to another open mic at another place that's gone, which was called IO West. This is about 5 years ago. Okay. Improv Olympics West was the name of the place. Oh, wow. And I went in, I got up, did the same routine. Nobody rolled their eyes. Nobody said, oh God. And I got like 3 titters in 5 minutes. Not laughs, but it was like 3 on 3 catches. So doing, you know, and I went, oh, that was literally a 300% improvement. Okay, I've improved 300% in 2 hours. I'm going to keep plugging away at this. So,
I love it. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things. I mean, I guess maybe. I mean, I've always said this about comedy, and I mean, coming from both a musical background myself, and you know, I like to write and stuff. But one of my favorite things about comedy is the turnaround time on the creative process. Is like you can have an idea. Literally on your way to the mic, you can then do the thing, and you'll know immediately if it'll work. Versus, you know, being a musician, unless you're playing solo, like if you're in a band, you're gonna have to sell everybody on the part. You're gonna have to teach everybody how to play the part, and then hope that they play it right. And there's emotionally invested in the thing as you are, and that's one of the great things about comedy. It's just so immediate.
You know what I like about it even better, that I always say it's almost cheating, is you focus group every second of your routine. Like you play a song to an audience, and at the end of the song they'll applaud, and you can tell if they liked it or not. They're like, yeah, it was really good. But with comedy, it's like second to second, they're like, I like that part not so much. Okay, this part again. And like, if you could have that with music, or just like, what do you think of this millisecond and this and this second and this second? But with comedy, it really works. It's like as the joke goes forward, you can tell this part's working, that part's not, this part's working, that part's not, and you can just tune the joke and tune the joke until it's all working. And it's because you have this focus group in front of you, these honest people that are telling you with this natural response that they don't even have control over. I like that, or I don't like that. Right. And it's almost cheating if you pay attention, which is why a bad set, I always say, thank you for the information. Okay, now I know what I got to work on. Like, hey, that was good information. I needed that. And then I also go, fuck you, assholes. I'm hilarious. I'm
gonna go home and crawl in a hole. I know.
But I also am like, hey, that was valuable information. You know, and it sucks when you crack yourself up so hard with a joke in the car on the way over, and you get up and everyone goes, nah. And then you try it again, and then after a week you go, God damn it, it's genuinely not funny. I can't believe it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's also, like, if you're a nerd about stuff, comedy really affords you that ability to just fine tune stuff down to just really milk it for all the little bits of laughter you can get out of it.
When we call it a tight 5, it is just that. You've cut all the fat off, you've tightened all the bolts, all the nuts, and you've got a tight 5, man. It's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. You grew up in Boston.
Well, I moved around a lot, but I ended up in Boston at age 13 and stayed there till age 26. So I consider myself pretty Boston-y.
But Massachusetts in that general vicinity, right?
Yeah, well, Marblehead, Massachusetts, about 50 miles north of hometown of Mr. Rob Delaney.
Hello.
And also hometown of the man once called Black Francis, now Frank Black of the Pixies. And hometown of the fisherman that rode Washington's troops across the Delaware, which turns out was not such a brave act after all. If you study about it, the Hessian troops on the other side, it was Christmas Day. They were hungover and in their beds, and we ran in unexpected and bayoneted a bunch of hungover guys sleeping. And we're like, what great heroes! It's like, these guys are in their beds sleeping. They were all hungover. You fucking put a bayonet through his fucking neck. I'm not sure that's heroic.
Yeah, that's hilarious. There's so many. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's something to this. Maybe there's not. But there's so many funny people out of that area. I mean, I would say, just based on my own podcast, I would say if you're going to go by states, where comedians are from, California's number one for obvious reasons. But but I would say Massachusetts is second.
Yeah.
Like I mean, there's a lot of you guys out here, and you guys are funny. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of just funny people from that area.
Yeah.
Do you think there's anything to that, or is that just? I mean,
Well, I think it as observationalists, which comics obviously are, Boston gives you a lot to observe that you don't get in other parts of the country, which is, northern white racism, obviously, these
Sure.
segregated neighborhoods. It's
Right.
one of the last major cities where there is an Italian neighborhood and a Polish neighborhood, and the lines are blurrier now than they've ever been, but they
Right.
used to be really defined,
Yeah.
and the characters in Boston, you just get characters. It's part the accent, it's part the culture, you
Sure.
know. I mean, you get that loud New York kind of thing, but you get it with this Boston twist on it, which it's just, I don't know. I think it just makes us uniquely. Our life experience is such that when we talk about the old days, it might be a little bit funnier than if you're from, Passaic, New Jersey or whatnot,
Yeah.
I think. I could be wrong, but yeah.
I mean, it's interesting. Yeah. I mean, it's fascinating. You guys are all pretty nice too. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's some of that. I find that. I actually just had a couple of Chicago comedians on. I find comedians from Chicago tend to be fun hangs too. They're usually pretty grounded.
Well, they've
people.
got such a good. Chicago's a lot like LA though, where comics go to Chicago
Sure.
to do it. Which you don't get a lot of in Boston. But in LA, you get people coming from everywhere. And in Chicago, I've known a lot of people that went from LA to Chicago. They were like, "It's too hard here. I'm going to go to Chicago, where the scene is good, and I think I have a better shot of getting in."
Yeah. And Boston's similar in that it's kind of in the shadow of a much bigger scene, being New York, obviously.
Yeah.
And but I find it's those scenes that are like in that shadow that tend to produce some of the best comics, And there's a little bit of a microcosm of that here in California, where you have, in my opinion, some of the funniest comedians from our state are coming out of San Diego and Sacramento. And if you look at San Diego, obviously you have LA kind of overshadowing it.
Yeah.
And if you look at Sacramento, you have San Francisco overshadowing it. And
Right.
and they're just weird little like percolations, of funny people that all kind of find each other because they're so sick of the big scene, and they're tired of and then they all just go decide to get funny on their own.
Yeah.
And so I think
Yeah, it's funny how with comedy there's such different flavors to a scene too, because
yeah.
and then there's the flavors within the scene. What that makes so much more sense, I guess, with music, where you're like, well, you're all part of this. You're influencing each other and whatnot. But with comedy, it seems like already there's such disparate kinds of comics within any given scene. But it is interesting how one scene will gravitate more towards, like, LA comics have a terrible reputation, and I think I get that, but I'm not entirely sure I understand why that is. But comics from other scenes are like, oh, you guys, you LA comics, you're all the same. I'm like, we're definitely not all the same.
You're
but
definitely
what
not.
is the commonality? What is the thread that they are seeing in us that they don't like?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know that sometimes, like, because I book a lot of shows, and I see a lot of. I see a lot of LA comics that's in, and I mean, there are some LA comics that write very LA material, and I don't think they realize it's that LA. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're talking about traffic, and they're talking about homeless people, and it's not that other places don't have that stuff, but it's not nearly. It's not as much of an effect on your daily life that people and from Tucson, Arizona, are going to connect with it in the way that or even in Fresno. Fresno has traffic for about 30 minutes a day, and then it clears up, and that's it. And so for an LA comic to come up here and talk about traffic, like we're like, it sucks, kinda, but like it's not a big deal. And so I think that maybe that's part of it. I don't know. I mean, I look at it through the eyes of a booker when it comes to whether I want you to perform on my show or not. But I think some people see LA, because I have seen some pretty pretentious comics out of LA. Like occasionally we'll get an LA open micer up here to do our open mic, and they'll come up and they'll just try to swing their dick around because they're from LA, and we're like, no, dude, like, no,
wow.
like this isn't some backwater scene that you're gonna stomp all over. I'd put any of my open micers up against an LA open micer any day of the
Oh,
week.
dude, trust me.
So yeah,
I spent a lot of time at the LA open mic scene, and very often I find myself in the back back wondering, okay, so if I put the gun in my mouth, where do you actually aim? What part? Like straight to the top or the back? What's
You're
the
shooting for the brainstem?
Yeah, I know,
or do you
yeah.
want- and so, but I will say that generally the comics that are leaving LA to do the road are not those comics.
Yeah.
Like you, David Smalley, are not those comics, you know, and I think there are a lot of them in LA, but they stay in LA for the most part, I think. So.
That's because they don't get booked and they don't go out, but
Right.
It's interesting in LA though, if like it's at a point right now where there's an open mic industry, which you don't have anywhere else.
That's
I don't
wild.
think.
Yeah, that's
but
so
it's
weird.
like there are these places called the Fourth Wall and another place called Bird's Backroom, which are studios that are just for open mics, and they run them all day, starting at noon to midnight, once an hour, and you sign up online on a thing called slotted.com.
Holy shit.
And you're in and out in an hour, and you can do 8 of them in a row if you want. And it started with one place, and it turned into 2, 3, 4, 5, and now I think there's 6 or 7 places, and it's just people making a business out of open mics.
How much does a set cost?
It's $5 for 5 minutes, $12 for 15 minutes. Like when they
Holy
will do those,
shit.
like, and those are the most painful thing in the history of the world. Going to a 15, like I have a set, I have to get my 15 minutes up and ready. I have to go to that, which means you have to sit through 4 or 5 people who should not be doing 3 minutes, doing 15 minutes, and you have to sit and watch them. It's a little bit rough.
That is bananas.
And then
dude.
there's a few comedy teachers that have started taking their students to these mics. Oh Lord, if you
Jesus.
find yourself at that mic where you're like, oh wait, this is a whole comedy class. I'm the only one that's, and then you have to watch that. It's you learn a lot of the what not to do, but actually you don't, because they're doing stuff that you should have known not to do that.
Yeah, right. How bananas, man.
Yeah.
So growing up out there in Massachusetts, what kind of kid are you growing up? Are you a real precocious kid? Or
I
you
was
a good student.
No, I was so confused. It was crazy. So I was a punk rock listening, skateboarding, troublemaking, bad student, young Republican.
How funny. Yeah.
How that worked, I don't know.
Yeah. That's wild. Yeah, you showed me the pictures of you and Dan Quayle last night.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah. I don't know how that worked. I don't know how I squared that circle. Other than I think to myself that I'm still very politically active. You know, I'm a lefty now.
Yeah.
But I think I was just intrigued by politics. I wanted something to do with it. And my dad, who he died last year, but he was a Trump-loving, MAGA hat wearing super freak for the Fox News watching. And he just told me, he's like, yeah, you're a Republican. Join the Young Republicans. So I was just taking my... Okay, so I did it for like 2 years, and you know, I tried to wrap my head around it. I thought, I mean, anyone can present any ideology in a way that, you know, that makes sense, particularly to a 14-year-old boy, you know.
And there's probably one of those things where maybe I can change it from the inside.
Yeah.
Or, you know, like, but that's wild.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but by the time I was actually old enough to vote, I was way out of the Republicans, and I couldn't bring myself. It's so funny. I do think perhaps I'm a genius, because I looked at Bill Clinton and I was like, I can't fucking vote for that guy. Like, there's something I just didn't like about him, and I never liked about him. And now that I know a lot about him, I was right. I don't like Bill Clinton.
Yeah, I was just, I mean, and it's, I mean, him, this is a weird tangent, but I mean, I was just listening to a podcast about Monica Lewinsky, and man, we were fucking savage to her. We were so,
Which one was it? Slow Burn?
No, it was, fuck, what podcast? Oh, it was, Abe Lincoln's Top Hat. They were doing an interview with a gal that did a big write up on her recently, and we were just, as a society, just, I mean, savages, you know.
I know.
And looking back on that,
Yeah.
and you know, Bill perpetrated that, and he still hasn't apologized for for all of that. So a good instinct on your part.
She was pretty badass. She was 22 years old,
she
and
was
and the FBI took her into a room and were like giving her the heat and really pressuring her, and she wouldn't break. She didn't break. She's a 22-year-old girl with the FBI bearing down on her, and she's like, I'm not saying shit.
Yeah.
Go Monica.
She was, and like, I mean, the other thing too is that she was painted as sort of this like ditzy bimbo.
Yeah.
But she was she had a master's degree.
Yeah.
She was like, I mean, she was an intern at the White House.
Yeah,
like they don't give that to everybody.
Of course not.
You know?
Yeah. And she was not bad at giving blowjobs either, from what I understand.
Just to bring her right back around. but yeah. So I mean, yeah, good instinct on the Bill Clinton thing. And so I mean, were you doing sports at all? Were you into sports?
Not
or?
at all.
Yeah.
Never had any interest in sports of any kind. Was forced to play sports by my dad when I was younger because I was an American boy and I was. And
You're a young
fortunately
Republican.
for me,
Yeah.
I got out of that the old-fashioned way, which was by peeing my pants in the middle of a baseball game while playing shortstop.
Nice.
And rolling in the dirt to try and cover it up in front of everybody. In front of everyone. So I peed my pants because I was an idiot. I was like 9 years old and I was like, I really have to go pee. And I had this thought that only a kid could have. I was like, I'll just go a little bit. Just a little bit.
That's
Relieve the
hilarious.
pressure. So I
Yeah.
started peeing and it wouldn't shut off. There was no shutting it off and I just peed the hell out of my pants. But because I was out at the short stop position, nobody could really tell. And it was a white uniform. So white when you pee, you know,
Sure.
everyone knows this. If you're going to pee your pants, pee in white. Because it doesn't, like, it's not as noticeable, you know. But I realized, hey, I'm going to have to go in after the inning and everyone's going to know. And I looked over and the kid on third base had just slid into the base. He's covered in dirt. I'm like, Regilio, you genius. Just drop down, roll around in the dirt, cover it up, problem solved. So right in front of everyone, I dropped down, rolled in the dirt, got up. Yes, there's dirt on me. There's also mud in the exact shape of like the horseshoe around my crotch, making it so motherfucking obvious I had peed my pants. My dad walked in onto the field in the middle of playing, took me by the hand, led me away, and I never had to play sports again.
Wow.
So kids, if you're looking to get out of being in sports, pee your fucking pants.
Wow, that is some
Yeah.
life knowledge. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank
Hey,
you.
I'm spitting truths over here.
It's amazing. When did the music come into play for you?
Music came into play. Well, I was like 15 years old, and me and a couple of friends decided to start a rock band. And this was like maybe September, beginning of the year. We're like, we're gonna be a rock band. Okay, awesome. So we got a name for the band, and we decided who was gonna play what. And then we were like, okay, so how are we gonna get these instruments and learn how to play them? And the only plan was we'll just have to ask for their instrument for Christmas. So we just had to wait for 4 months. So I asked for a guitar, got it. My friend asked for a bass, got it. My other friend asked for drums and got it. The other guy had to ask for a microphone or whatever, you know. And then like
parents got
basically
off
the
easy.
day after Christmas, we all got together like, finally, we had the names of all the songs written, the lyrics all written.
You've done all
We
the
had drawn a million pictures of what we're going to look like in our cool rock and roll gear and whatnot. And we got together and we're like, oh shit, we forgot to learn how to play the instruments. Okay, here we go. And it was a slow crawl
Yeah.
from there.
How
Yeah.
funny. You've got everything a band needs but the music.
Yeah. But any idea of what you were doing, quite frankly.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good way to learn. I guess you can learn all together, and you got
And
friends
we did.
pushing you,
Yeah,
and
we
motivating
sucked simultaneously with
Yeah.
each other. Yeah.
How funny, man!
Yeah.
That's amazing. and so yeah. Now, are you? I mean, you're obviously this punk rock kid, playing music in his garage and with his buddies. But is it? I mean, are you in an area that's accepting of that, or are you growing up in kind of a conservative?
Like every rich white town in America, there's a punk rock scene.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
You know, these kids are the coolest of the cool. Basically, you know, and we'd say, we hate the jocks, fuck you, jocks.
Yeah,
and, you know,
right.
but the jocks were just the same thing as
Yeah.
us. And when we all grew up, it was it turns out, we were all just the same thing, just different flavors of it. But yeah. Punk rock in, that would be the late 80s, early 90s, was very accepted in suburban. You know,
Sure.
our parents were driving us to, fucking Descendants shows
Yeah, yeah.
and picking us up afterwards.
Just helping you put
know.
your hair up in the mohawk.
Yeah.
Thanks,
literally,
Mom.
literally. Yeah, it's true.
I
Yeah.
brought you some more safety pins.
Yeah. Put them in your jacket, honey. No, and the shoulder, like in the picture of the Sid Vicious that you showed me. Mom, yeah, my mom, yeah, it was funny. She would like tell her, and like my mom was a nurse, and she'd like tell like the nurse friend, she's like, he likes the Sex Pistols, and it never even occurred to her that was like a euphemism for something. She's like, he likes Sid Vicious and Johnny Rotten, and
How funny, man. Yeah, it's Mom. Could you be a little less supportive?
Yeah,
This is really kind of cramping my style.
Yeah, I know. Fuck you, Mom. What for? What? I'm sorry. I just had to say that. It's just come on, Mom. Let me feel rebellious.
That's amazing. Did you go straight from high school into the Berkeley School of Music?
No,
or you?
I did not. I went to straight from high school into living in Boston and working at Tower Records.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Which was across the street from Berkeley College of Music.
Yeah.
And I was playing, and half the kids that worked there went to Berkeley, and they were like, "Dude, you're pretty good. You should think about going to Berkeley or whatnot. You know, you." I was like, all right. So I went over, I auditioned, I got in, and next thing I knew, I was in the school. You know?
Were you pretty good on theory? I mean, I know a lot of.
No, I didn't even know what it was. I didn't.
wow.
When I started at Berklee College of Music, I honestly didn't know what music was.
Oh,
like
wow.
they were like, these are vibrations, and when you speed them up, you get different notes. I'm going, get the fuck out of here. That's what notes are. I had no idea. I didn't even know, which isn't even as bad. I was in a band with a guy in LA one time. I found a long time ago that the best combination is if you're going to get a guy who's like Berklee educated like me, you have to counter it with a complete musical Nimrod, you know, somebody who doesn't know anything but is talented, and but just so that they don't fall into the same tricks as you, and they kind of pull you into the more simplistic ideas.
Sure.
And I was working with him, and he was a singer. And he was writing a melody, and I was like, well, I'm not sure what you're going for there. Let me try and figure out your melody that you're playing on guitar, and we'll look at the notes and see. And so I figured out what the notes he was singing on guitar, and he said to me, I didn't realize I was singing notes you could play on a guitar. I was like, oh, wow, you're all the way there, man. You
God
are.
bless you. Yeah.
And I was like, in your case, you're not singing notes you can find on a guitar unless you go in between the frets.
I remember, and so those guys can be a little frustrating to work with. I remember there was one guy I was playing with one time, and I wasn't a big theory nerd or anything like that, but I knew the fundamentals of everything. And I remember I was playing with this guy that was totally self-taught, and he was playing guitar. He taught himself guitar, and I was playing bass. And I was like, hey man, like, let me check out your root notes on that. And he was like, no, like, you can't see my chords. Like, I invented these. I'm like, you didn't invent open G. Like,
Get out of here.
You didn't invent C major.
And wait, who would be playing with you that would want to keep a secret from you what they're playing anyway?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I know.
He had just been sitting around in his garage, thought he was just some musical savant. You know, like, nobody can know these things.
Well, how do you play together if you don't show me what the fuck you're playing, asshole? That is hilarious. Yeah.
So I mean, I mean that is. But you're right though. When you see, it's almost like when you see, we were talking about it last night, when you see like an open micer that's just totally uninhibited by like the rules of comedy, and they do just something fucking wild that you would never think to do. It's a little like that, where there's like that weird like improvisation, or not even improvisation. It's just their angle of approach. It's just so uninhibited by any of the bullshit rules that we make up about stuff.
Well, like I was telling you last night, it's almost always unintentional. The greatest moments I've seen on the open mic scene were people that had no idea what they were doing. That was great. I told you about that time I was at the Improv, and the French guy got up completely covered in plants that he had covered himself in, and he wanted them to play a song on the PA. He'd given them a CD, and he wanted to sing along, and they had the wrong CD. And it's just this guy on stage dressed as a plant with a French accent going, no, not that song. The song I gave you. Play the song. And the guy's like, oh, this is the only song on the CD. He's like, oh, I'm standing up here with my dick in my hand, man. Come on, play the... And then he tries singing it with a cappella, and it's not working. I'm going, this is the most genius thing ever. And then it turned out, no. This was not a bit. This was him just living life. And then they let him come back up and actually sing the song later when they got the right song. I was like, no! Song sucks. This bit is terrible. Him on stage falling to pieces was the most brilliant thing I had seen.
It's amazing. Those beautiful moments on the open mic you get. And they're fleeting. They're few and far between. But man, sometimes you just see fucking magic, man. I mean, last night, we were talking about it last night after the clown went up for the first time ever.
I know.
And then Anthony Dugan goes up. And I'm so glad that went well.
I know. To which I was like, I was so disappointed that went well. I wanted that guy to burn.
The last thing we need
apart.
is a clown snapping on the open mic.
I was ready. I was also ready to run if things went the wrong way. When a guy gets up in clown makeup after the Joker movie came out, I was like, okay, fire exit there, get bathroom back there. I'm ready to run when this guy pulls out his gun.
Oh my God, that was so funny. Those are just beautiful moments though, man. And like you said, it's got to come from somebody that doesn't have all the baggage that sometimes we decide is so important. So well, that's great. Well, we've been on a good clip here.
Oh, all right.
That was good. That
Thanks.
was fun.
Hey.
Well, this is a podcast called Sad Dad.
Yeah.
And you're Michael Regilio. Mm-hmm. And this podcast.
My dad's dead, which is very sad.
Hey, I've been there with guests, and it's okay. We'll work through it. Man.
Okay, we'll work through it. Yeah.
It's my very first guest. The first time I ever asked somebody to be on my podcast, and I was like, "This is a podcast where we talk about dads," and he's like, "Cool, yeah, my dad's dead." I'm like, "Oh shit!" Like this is the first one.
Yeah.
I'm starting off with a dead dad on my first episode.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all good, man. But yeah, I mean, I was kind of telling you last night. I mean, the way I like to start in on the dad stuff is like, where'd your dad grow up?
My dad grew up in Chicago, Illinois.
Yeah.
In the old neighborhood system in the 50s. I remember when I was a kid, Happy Days was a big show on the TV at the time.
Yeah.
And I realized that my dad was a teenager, a greaser in the 50s. I thought that was so cool.
Yeah. Did he ever talk to you about that? I mean,
he was in a gang, which it was kind of a nerd gang, apparently. But they were called the Bucks, and I still have the patch from their jacket.
No shit. How fucking cool.
Yeah. And he said that they were in one rumble ever. And the one side lined up and the other side lined up. And he said one of the guys on his side could do a perfect impression of a police siren. And he did it. And they were like, cops are coming. And they ran. And that was it. It was the end of the rumble. Yeah.
So we kind of won that one, guys. Yeah. Nobody got hurt. It was great. Yeah. That's amazing. Do you have any sense of, I mean, he's in a gang, but like, is it just the thing to do at the time?
It was just the thing to do. The guys in the neighborhood banded together, called themselves a gang. I mean, my dad was an artist. He was what was called a commercial artist at the time. And so he designed their patch, and had it printed up, and then they put it on jackets, So,
cool.
I mean, I think right there it just says that they were, pretty innocent young guys. They were all hardcore Catholics, by the way.
Oh, wow.
My dad lived in an all-Italian neighborhood, and they were, my dad, until his dying day, was a hardcore Catholic to an extent, except for when the Pope said stuff that he disagreed with, that he was like, I'm with Trump. It's like, Dad, you're not supposed to disagree with the Pope. He's like, I don't know, but Fox News has got this one right. Pope's wrong. He's a liberal.
Yeah, isn't that wild? You get that whole that not a true Scotsman fallacy where it's like, the Pope is. It's like, Dad, I don't know.
I think the Pope is a real cat. I think you got to go. Yeah,
I think he is the Scots. I think he is. But yeah, it's wild. So so is any sense of what he was like as a kid? Obviously, he was an artist. Growing up in
very talented artist, started painting. I have a painting he did at, I think, 7 years of age on my wall, which is remarkable. It's a great painting. It looks good. Yeah, he was always considered like the most talented artist in his school and his community. But the Uncle Sam came a knock-in, and so he went into the military, and then when he got out, I think he did do a little bit of college, but was able to go right into corporate America, because at that point he had a wife, and then he had kids coming on the way, and he was what was called a commercial artist, and he kind of gave up on the painting and whatnot towards the end, or until the end, when he was in retirement, he got back into it. But I always felt like, he was like a true artist wanting to come out, but he tamped it down so hard with conservative ideas in America and the uprightness that, like, he could have been a pot smoking freewheeling
he could have gone
Parisian guy. I think he had it in him, but he ended up just MAGA hat wearing, Fox News loving,
weird, that seduction of
climate change denying. I think my dad was he was a beautiful person. He loved his children and his grandchildren with all his heart. I mean, that's all he did was think about us and our welfare. And he was a worrywart like you wouldn't believe. If he turned on the news and they said, that it was raining in Los Angeles, he was on the phone. Are you all right? How's the apartment? Is it leaking? How's the car? He was always worried about the car. I mean, just once a week. How's the car? How's the car running?
It's weird but it seems like it came from a place of love. I mean, like this weird existential worry was kind of directed towards you guys, but it didn't seem like he was placing it in the right way or in the right place.
I think my dad was a classic example of something that I've heard about before, where people are like, Fox News and conservative media kind of changed my parents. Like in their old age, they started buying guns and gold and hiding things around the house and buying supplements and survival stuff. They bought into it. And I do believe that people like Glenn Beck and all these people, they're just merchants of, it's not about what they're saying, it's about the shit they're selling, the endorsements and whatnot that they're selling, and they're just scaring you into buying gold and supplements and all this stuff. And I think my dad fell for that for the most part.
I think that's a weird, because my parents are similar. Not so much my mom. I mean, my mom, but in different ways. But I think there's something about that generation that grew up in sort of like that weird golden era of TV where you were told it was okay to trust the TV, and it was they grew up, and what the TV said was okay, and it was okay, and obviously that probably changed as they got older, and they got a little bit more world weary, but at the same time too, I'll hear my mom just say stuff that she heard on TV, and I'm like, Mom, why did you hear that? Like, you're just spouting that off like it's fact right now, and I think that's I don't think they were quite as cynical of a generation as we grew up to be, and where we were past that whole era of the Ovaltine era of like, drink your Ovaltine, it'll make you healthy type of thing, which is, and so there's a weird seduction of like the older generations that has happened over the last few years, and it's real sad, man.
Well, it's interesting you should say that, because the fact of the matter is, back in the old days when our parents were growing up, that the news division of all the major networks was a money loser. It wasn't required to make money. They didn't need it to make money. And so it was just on the factual reporting of the news. And there were only 3 or 4 outlets, ABC, CBS, NBC, and they're all reporting the same news in the same way. And people were getting the same news, and the networks weren't peppering the newscast with sensational stories that got people to tune in, which got them to watch the commercial so that they could justify their, and when that all changed, and suddenly cable news came around, where it was all about getting viewers, eyeballs on the screen, which meant they had to go with the sensational stories, which meant eventually they had to find their demographic and then appeal to them. And,
it's wild, like how recent that change is too. I think that only happened in the 90s, where it could, a commercial entity could buy the news, and that's it's so bizarre.
It's interesting. Roger Ailes, who is the founder of Fox News, used to work in the Nixon White House. He was an aide to Richard Nixon. He wasn't a TV guy at all per se. He was literally just a political pundit. And he wrote a paper for Nixon, which you can find in the Nixon library, called The GOP on TV, in which he said, today people watch more TV than they read the newspaper or listen to the radio or watch. And when people watch TV, they turn off their brain, and the thinking is done for them. We need to utilize that and manipulate that. And then he went on to form Fox News. He basically admits in this paper that you can find in the Nixon library, called The GOP on TV, that we're going to use TV, and we're going to push our message into people's brains, because they're going to turn off their brain and the thinking will be done for them. And then he went on to found Fox News. It's just, it seems too perfect.
Wild how seamless that transition, that nefarious idea, just transitioned straight into social media. Like, it was just seamless. You didn't even see it happen, and it's bizarre. And I think that's another thing too with, again, we're of a generation where we'll see something sensational online, and we're like, what's the source of this? I've never heard of this website before. What is this? Whereas, again, if you're an older person that didn't grow up on the internet, you're like, well, it's on the internet. It's got to be, and I see that a lot too with my folks, and just quoting just this wild bullshit. I'm like, Mom.
Yeah. Although my dad's case, I think he gave it away the game a few times, where it was obvious that he didn't really believe it. Like with the climate change denier stuff, like he was, I was saying to me, name me one scientist who believes the climate change, one reputable climatologist or whatever that believes climate change is a hoax or whatever. And he gave me a name, and I pulled out my phone, and he goes, God damn it, I forgot you could look this shit up. I'm like, oh, so you knew this was bullshit. You knew. You're fucking with me. And I go, looking the guy up anyway. I go, he's a local meteorologist from Minneapolis. He's not a fucking climatologist. That's and you funny. Knew that. You knew that. You're fucking with me. It's just comfortable to believe. Of course we didn't fuck up the planet. With my dad, I always felt like, and I used to say this to him, I'm like, Dad, the reason you think climate change is a hoax is because if you say it's real, it means the hippies were right.
Yeah.
The entire time when they talked about Mother Earth and we have to take care of the earth. Right. And you said, fuck you, you stupid fucking hippies. And if you say, yeah, we fucked up the earth, you are tacitly saying, oh, the hippies were right. I was wrong. And I ain't gonna say that.
Right. And then there's the whole culpability element too. It's like, oh, I fucked up this planet for my my kids and my grandkids.
Yeah.
Like, fuck, you
Yeah,
know?
I know.
And, yeah. So I mean, I guess I kind of get it in that way, but I mean, obviously it's corporations just wanting to hang on to their money. But man, we got real in the weeds on that.
Yeah.
So your dad was in the game.
I tried to bring it back to Dad to the best of my ability. Yeah.
I'm as guilty as anybody here. So he goes. Well, what point did he meet your mom? What's the?
My dad met my mother at a picnic. He was 30 and I think she was 21.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
go dad. Yeah,
and they were super Catholics, and so the Catholic Church was like, yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
And they pushed them together, and my mom started having kids at I think 21, 22 or something like that.
Yeah,
It was a
young
pretty
mom.
quick, my parents proved to me quite conclusively that marriage is a sham, and that marrying the wrong person will rot you from the inside out, it's a bad idea.
Yeah. So I mean, did you see much of that growing up, or was it only when you got older?
Well, it was when I became older. I mean, their divorce was one of the ugliest divorces in the history of the world. Again, speaking to my dad and what a sweet, kind man he was, like, it's not his fault that my mom, I mean, who's to say? It's a relationship. Sure. I'm sure there's a give and a take on anyone, but she had a lot of anger issues because at 21 she started having kids, and she ended up being pregnant 8 times, having 6 kids.
You have that many siblings?
No, 2 miscarriages. I like to say, but my mom was pregnant for 3 months, had a miscarriage, and became pregnant with me a month later.
Oh my gosh!
So the way I like to look at that is that in order for me to come into the world, a baby had to die. So that's my cute little way of looking at it. I like to say that the baby's like in heaven looking down going, really? For this fucking asshole I had to die? For him, this open mic fucking comic? Jesus Christ.
This fucking guy wasted his life on comedy. That's wild. I mean, because I mean that's tough, because I mean obviously a miscarriage is an extremely difficult emotional thing, and if you've got a bunch of kids already, and then you're knocked up again, you have no time to process that sort of thing.
I know.
Yeah.
And I think in the end that really it took a toll.
Yeah.
But my mom pretty much my dad went out one day, and my mom had a moving truck pull up to the house, emptied the house, emptied the bank account, and just left him.
Wow.
And she calls me and tells me about it. And this
How
speaks
old
to what
are you at this point?
I'm 30 at this
Oh,
point.
wow.
20, 28, 29,
Yeah.
somewhere in there. And so I'm an adult. I'm old enough to process it. And by the way, for the 3 or 4 years leading up to this, I was on the phone to my dad on a regular basis going, get the fuck out of that house, man. Just go, leave. The kids are grown up. Like, don't. And he was like, I can handle it. It's fine. I'm like, she's miserable and making you miserable. You guys are horrible together.
How
and it's
old
just,
are they at this point?
Oh,
I mean, that's late in life to have a divorce.
Yeah, they were for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, late 60s for my dad, and late 50s for my mom.
That's
probably.
wild,
I'm thinking.
yeah.
And but so she calls and tells me, and this is just how laid back my dad was. He really was a laid back, cool guy, and he just and I learned so much from him about how to approach life. But so I called my sister. I was in California, and I called my sister. I'm like, Mom says she left Dad. She's like, what? She said she left him 3 days ago. It's just like I don't know anything about this. So she drives to the house, goes in, and my dad is watching an old black and white TV and sitting on a milk crate in the living room because all the furniture's gone. And she walks in, she's like, Dad, what's going on? And she said, just as casually as could be, he went, oh, your mother left me. Like just
Wow.
Just wasn't even going to bother us with it. Oh, don't worry. It's all fine.
What? And I mean, he's got to be well into his retirement at that point. Is that what was it? I mean, did he? I know you said he went into corporate America.
Yeah, he did. Well, that's a sad story unto itself.
Well, yeah,
he was working for. I don't know. I'm going to slander a major corporation. How do you feel about this?
That's
you have
fine.
to believe it.
By all means.
He was working for General Electric, and
okay.
he had been with them pretty much his entire life, since I think his 30s when he entered the workforce. I think actually maybe before that. And he was 2 years away from retirement. And they laid him off, which cut his retirement benefits in half that he had been counting on his entire life because he didn't make it to 65. And they had laid off a bunch of people who were his age. And it was very obvious that they were doing it because they didn't want to pay out all these retirement benefits. Wow. And so they had a class action lawsuit against them and lost.
Oh no.
The GE with their evil lawyers won, and they basically they kneecapped him, in his last 2 years of service to them after having given them a lifetime. So I personally will never buy.
Let's just start breaking light bulbs, bro.
Yeah. I don't even need to buy. Don't break them. I'm just not buying them. Not going here. That's a lifetime boycott.
Yeah. That's real, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense. And so I mean, was he still doing a commercial artist at that point, or what kind of work was he doing?
Yeah, he was
GE?
an artist. They had an in-house art department,
gotcha.
that he just exclusively worked for them. But yeah,
I got you. What's he like? What kind of work though? I mean, is he designing packages?
Well, he worked for their aircraft engine division, not for their refrigerator division or whatnot. It was doing presentations, probably mostly for the military, I think, and stuff like that. But yeah,
how interesting. Yeah. I mean, and he has a military background. Do you feel like did they select him for that purpose? Like he's to appeal?
I couldn't tell you for sure, but I do know that we got pretty prime seats at the air show every time it came around. I saw the Blue Angels many a time. Pretty cool. But my dad, I always say that one of the best pieces of advice he ever gave me that stuck with me forever was he was going to go walk to the store one day, and his hair was a mess, and he was wearing an old T-shirt, and my mother said, "Go stop your father from going out like that. What will the neighbors think?" So my dad, who was so Catholic, he was an Opus Dei, if you know what that is.
I mean, I know the term. But
it's Opus Dei is like they still say the Mass in Latin.
Oh,
like
wow.
We're talking old school. They were the bad guys in the Da Vinci Code, Opus Dei, because they were like the religious zealot lunatics.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
So he's going out. I ran up to him. I was like 9 years old, and I said, "Mom, Dad says don't go out looking like that. You look like a mess. What will the neighbors think?" And this was so out of character for him, and it stuck with me. My dad just turned to me, looked at me, and he went, "Fuck him." And he just walked down the street with his hair a mess and his old ratty T-shirt on. And I've been like that ever since, man. It's like, fuck him. Who gives a fuck what people think of you,
Yeah, right. How cool. And what was he like? I mean, as a dad, was he real hands-on growing up? Or, I mean...
Nope.
No.
He worked, the 9-to-5 job, and he came home, and the answer to everything was ask your mother, ask your mother, ask your mother. Like I said, loving, sweet guy, but not hands-on in that way. Whereas my mother was insanely hands-on, like literally hands-on, as in whap.
Oh wow, yeah. What was your parents' take on you kind of going into the arts like he did?
Yeah. Well, again, I cannot stress enough. Don't marry the wrong person, and the Catholic Church is to blame too, I think, because it forces you to stay together. You cannot get a divorce. The Pope says no, and so my mom she didn't even know what art was. She had no taste in art whatsoever. She didn't like music. She didn't like painting. She didn't like any of that stuff. What really bummed me out was my dad was a funny guy. He was a really funny guy, and my mom had no sense of humor. It's like, dude, you're with a woman that doesn't even like to laugh at your jokes, And I actually got the hell out of a relationship, 10 years ago now, where I was dating a beautiful girl who I really liked, but she had no sense of humor.
Yeah.
And I didn't get to be the funny guy that I am around her. I was like, and I said to her one time, I was like, when I'm with my friends, they laugh their asses off. She's like, "Ugh, you're just annoying when you make jokes." I'm like, "No, I'm not. I'm funny."
I am funny.
You're fucking annoying that you don't like jokes. I was like, I can't stick with you. Like, it's actually a pretty good relationship, but you don't laugh. You don't like to laugh. I'm funny, and that's a aspect of my personality that I just don't think I should have to tamp down and change for you.
Yeah.
And that was a part of my parents' relationship, where my dad was a funny guy. He used to crack us up, and my mother just saw it as annoying. Oh, jokes.
Yeah,
Like,
my parents are a little bit like that, but much more so my grandparents were like that. My grandma was just so mean to my grandfather, especially when they got older. And but my grandpa would find these funny ways to like get back at her. Like he would show up to breakfast. She would make him like a bacon and eggs. And he would never put his dentures in. And so because of that, he had the justification to like he got to like chop his eggs. And he would chop his eggs into a fine vapor. Like you could just inhale these eggs. But the thing was that the noise that the knife and fork would make against the plate, like the kink, shh, kink, shh, would drive her fucking insane.
Yeah.
And my grandpa would literally spend 20 minutes just
Yeah.
crisscrossing these eggs, and so I don't think that was a healthy relationship.
Yeah,
but,
no.
but my grandpa was so funny, and my grandma was just always just kind of smashing.
But that's
him
how you
down.
do it when you're that old. You want revenge on her, and it's like you can't. Fighting old school is boring. You chop the eggs. Oh, there you go, Mildred. Chopping the egg.
Psychological warfare at that point. So I mean, I don't know. And so I mean, after the divorce, I mean, what was the fallout of that? I mean, were your folks happier? I mean, was it tough to gauge?
It was really interesting. My mom went to her old family, her brothers and sisters in Chicago, and found, in the 40 years since you were my, close-knit family, you've gone on and gotten your own lives, and my dad, on the other hand, my mom, I always say, like, she waited so long. There was a lot of heartache. It was hard to raise 6 kids.
Sure.
We weren't well off. We lived in a 3-bedroom house with 6 kids. I mean, we're talking rough. And, finally got all the kids through college. Everybody got educated. No one's on drugs. Everyone's doing well. The oldest ones are getting married and having grandkids. We lived in a really nice town, which when we lived in this small house in the nice town, it was hard times. But now it's just mom and dad in a 3-bedroom house in a beautiful, rich little white suburban town. All they had to do was go for walks to the beach and count the grandkids as they came in. And she walked away from it. Wow. And she gave it all to him. So she moved to Chicago, 1,500 miles away from the family, and my dad just stayed in the hometown, and they sold the house. He got a nice apartment in the hometown, and the grandkids would go hang out with him, and he'd take them fishing, and she was just somewhere else. It reached the point where some of my nieces and nephews started referring to my mother to my sister. They would say your mom instead of grandma. They would call her your mom to my sister. They didn't even know her anymore, so it was really interesting. So it's hard for me to say, but he won the lottery, and she walked away from the lottery. The lottery was all that hard work was waiting for that moment, and he got to have it all. And his life absolutely improved after the divorce.
And I mean, that's good to hear. Because I've seen a lot of guys that can't bounce back from that, and I have friends that they'd go through either a divorce or a breakup after a really long term, and then they just immediately jump into the next relationship because they don't know how to be single. But I mean, was the bachelor life something your dad kind of took to? I mean, did he kind of?
My God, yes.
Yeah.
He loved it. And you know what? I love it too. I'm in a serious relationship now, and that's only because I met somebody that I could not imagine not being in a relationship with. But after the band thing fell apart, and I decided I wanted to be in comedy, I was like, I need to dedicate 100% of me to this. And I spent 3 years single, just going to open mics and learning the craft and working hard at it. I was happy. I was great at it. I do single really well. I don't need to be in a relationship right now in my life. And then I ended up meeting somebody who I was like, okay, I can't imagine not having you in my life. So, and then 3 months into dating her, we were going to go for a walk or a big hike, and I thought, hey, she had this pull-up bar in her apartment, and I was like, I'm going to hang upside down from that, and it's going to decompress my spine. It's good to hang upside down, and it'll be good, and that'll be good for the hike, and then I won't get back pain or whatever. And I went to hang up, and as soon as I got my legs over the pull-up bar, it broke, dropped me 8 feet onto the floor, snapped my 4th rib on my back.
Oh God!
I had to go to the hospital in an ambulance. I had to take 2 months off of work, and she had to nurse me back to health. I had to move in with her 3 months into our relationship. And so by the time I was healthy again, we were so close. We'd been through, we just had to live together. She was my nurse. She had to nurse me back to health.
I mean, that's a real trial of any relationship is how well you do in the face of adversity like that.
So we're at the 7-month mark now, but by the 5-month mark, we were equivalent to people that have been dating 8 or 9 years, because we were just spending 24 hours a day together. And we just somehow my pain in the broken rib led to my experiencing a very deep love for another person. So in a weird way, it was a good thing. Plus, hey, not working is pretty awesome. Having the government just send you checks for being hurt. I was like, you know what? this ain't so bad.
Yeah, it's kind of nice.
You know, I got other ribs. Maybe you know what? Before I go back to work.
What are these dumb ribs even doing here?
Yeah.
And then just to bring it back, so your dad was kind of similar, huh? He just kind of took to the single retired life.
Took to the single retired life.
And weirdly, I have to imagine that almost worked out with the pension being cut like it was.
Yeah.
Because suddenly his cost of living is probably
went
much
way
lower.
down.
Yeah.
I like to say, you know, when my dad passed away, it was absolutely sad. But when my dad was 40 years old, the doctors told him, you have to stop eating like this or you are going to die of a heart attack.
Yeah.
42 years later, having not done one thing, we looked in his fridge after he passed away. It was garbage junk food. He was still having donuts for breakfast, pizza for dinner every night. He liked the pizza with the cheese in the crust because pizza doesn't have enough cheese on it as it fucking is. He had never been in the hospital a day in his life. He'd never had surgery. He'd never been sick. He lived a perfectly normal life. According to his credit card, on his last day of life, he went out for bacon and eggs at this cool little restaurant on the water. He went home. They found him having died instantly of a heart attack with Fox News on the TV. And it's like, dude, I call that a win. They said he was going to die 42 years ago.
Yeah.
He lived another 42 years. He didn't change one fucking thing. He lived on his own. He still drove. He still walked. He was still got around just fine. And in an instant, he was gone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he wasn't going to change. He was never going to fix any of the things about it. And as far as I'm concerned, dude, he went out like a champ.
And at 82, you know,
82,
I would be so happy to make it to 82.
Yeah, I know. That's a crazy thing. Ever since my dad passed away, I pay attention when people die, like particularly like rich people with good health care and good diets. I'm like John McCain died younger than my dad. David Koch was younger than my dad. You know, like all these rich and famous and people die way younger than my dad. I'm like, dude, you outlived them all. Yeah, you outlived them all. The joke I used to make when my dad, or not joke, but the sort of scenario I would set up for my sisters and my brother when my dad passed away, when they were particularly sad, I said, I want you to imagine this real quick. Imagine before dad was born in heaven with a bunch of people, and they said, okay, you 5 guys come over here. You 5 guys are never going to exercise, never adjust your diet, and just take your chances and die of natural causes. And now we're going to pull out these dice here, and we're going to see who goes at what age. Okay, Joe, you're going at 43. Okay, but that's way. And then when they got to my dad, they rolled the dice and they went 80 fucking 2. Holy shit! My dad was like, yeah, I'm like, that's what happened. He rolled the dice and he came up a winner. He made it to 82. I'm not gonna cry and say what could have been because it was a win. The dude went out like a champ.
What did he think when you started getting into comedy? Did he have any hot takes on that, or was he excited for you? Or
he was excited for me. I mean, my dad never ever used a computer a day in his life. We tried to get him a smartphone at one point, and he got angry. He's like, I don't want it. He was an artist. He was in his later years. There was a little bit of an art scene in my hometown of Marblehead, Massachusetts. They have the Festival of the Arts.
Oh, cool.
And my dad would submit, and he was in the last few years the last person that would do his stuff without any computer of any kind, because it was like a graphics design competition he would always join to come to do the logo, and he won several times. He would do it with the old art board and an X-Acto knife and cutting stuff out and creating logos. And he was the last of the dinosaurs, and he refused to use a computer. And his work was really cool as a result of it. All these guys with these fangled graphics and whatnot. And he was my dad who doing it like they did it in 1950, and it looked cool. So he didn't have a computer, so he had no really a way to see any of my sets that I was putting online and stuff like that. But he liked the idea, and he was always like, yeah, you're a funny guy. I see this being a good fit for you,
Cool. Yeah.
But I also do material that he wouldn't have approved of anyway,
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
my mom and I have a deal where I'm just like, I'm happy. I love doing it. Never click on something that I've done, Mom. You won't, don't hurt our relationship. We have a good relationship now. Don't watch my comedy. It will ruin our relationship.
Funny. We'll bring this thing in for a landing here. This is part of the show where I asked for a dadictote. I was talking to you about that last night. Just a favorite story you like to share about your dad. I feel like everybody kind of has one. And so
I've already told you the peeing my pants and him walking me off, and the fuck 'em, which is one of my favorites.
Yeah, those are great. Yeah, you feel like you got one more in the chamber there?
I got one more dadism in my...
And if you need to take a second, through the miracle of post-production, I can make it seem instantaneous.
All right, so here we go. Okay, I got one for you that I
Sure.
think is pretty hilarious. My dad, like me, was into driving shitty cars. He saw an advantage in driving shitty
Yeah, you
cars.
have a great bit about driving a shitty car.
Yeah,
that you do
and
on
so it's
stage.
just, but it's like, because it's, you don't have to worry about it ever. So, but my dad thought he could make lemonade out of lemons. So we had like a 20-year-old Plymouth that we drove into the ground. And my mother was embarrassed by it. Get rid of that thing. And one day my dad had a brilliant idea. He's like, I'm going to make some money off of this car. So he hired a photographer from, he knew in the art world that he had and whatnot. And he had me put on my baseball uniform. I was like 7. My sister put on her Girl Scout uniform, and everybody, and we stood around the old car and they took pictures of it. And my dad put together an advertisement like, our Plymouth has been getting our family around for all these years. And he sent it to Plymouth hoping they would be, great ad. And they wrote back and they're like, no, we're not trying to sell a 20. That car was for sale 20 years ago, where it's not for sale anymore. What is the ad? And he was like, well, the ad is that Plymouths last forever, or whatever. But they rejected. But I still have the ad that he worked up. And it, like, he because he was a graphic artist, he made it look exactly like a magazine ad of the family standing around the piece of shit 20-year-old Plymouth, But he was always looking for an angle, and he thought he could get one on that one, but he didn't. But it did give me a great little piece of memorabilia to remember him by. The ad for the Plymouth.
Dude, yeah, if you got that, you frame that and put that up on the wall. That's amazing. Yeah. Wow, cool. Well, Mike, you've been an absolute blast today.
Thank you.
If people want more Michael Regilio in their life, where should they go? Where should they find
Just
you?
the social medias at the time. I don't have a website or anything like
that's
that.
okay.
So, Michael Regilio, although I think on Twitter it's Regilio Michael, and that is Regilio. If you don't know how to spell Michael, I can't help you.
I'll link your Twitter handle with that. in the
Thanks,
show
man.
notes.
Yeah,
dude, thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you for having
It was
me.
a blast.
Peace.
And we're back. Michael Regilio, he's great, right? Follow him on the social medias. I'm going to link his Twitter handle in the show notes. He's fun. He's a real, we talk about it on the episode, but he's a real political junkie. And we watched a lot of news. I am very well informed after hanging out with him over the last two days. Ask me anything you want about Syria, you guys. I'm ready to go. Is there a quiz? Please let there be a quiz. Cool. And that is it. Sad Dad, if you need to get a hold of me, saddadpodcast@gmail.com. There's a Sad Dad Facebook page. Like I said, if you guys want to interact, rate and review on iTunes when you get a chance. Also, too, my other podcast that I've been producing with my dear friend Aaron Callahan, Shrink This. It's up, guys. It's on iTunes. It's on Spotify. It's not on Stitcher yet, and I don't know why. Generally, Stitcher just does whatever iTunes does. So I got to figure out what's going on with the RSS feed on that. But check that out. It's really good. I got the first episode out. I'll be releasing the second episode of that real soon, and probably this week. And then oh gosh, I don't know if I'm going to talk to you guys again. I don't have my phone with me. I don't know if I'm going to talk to you guys again before Halloween. But if I don't, you guys have a super happy Halloween. Oh no, I think I am. We'll have one more episode before that. I think it'll be October 30th. I'll release it. Or no, it'll actually be released on Halloween Day. Holy shnikes. Maybe I'll dress up for the podcast. We'll see. All right, you guys. That's it. Adios.